Hello, my dear friends. Today, I have a story that will touch your heart, stir your emotions, and remind us all of the power of love, loss, and forgiveness. This is the story of Eleanor Whitmore, a woman betrayed by her own daughter, yet guided by the wisdom and love of her late husband. A tale of secrets, inheritance, and the courage it takes to forgive even when the world seems to have turned against you. Before we begin, I invite you to take a moment and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll join our family of listeners who share in these emotional journeys stories of love, heartbreak, and redemption. Hit that notification bell too, so you never miss a story that moves your soul. Now, let us step together into the halls of Hudson Hill, where a mother, a daughter, and a legacy of truth await. Episode 1. The day the house fell silent. Remember the morning light as something cruelly beautiful. That kind of golden haze that falls across a house after death has already walked its corridors. The sunlight touched everything. The polished oak of the banister, the silver-framed wedding photos, the vase of lilies already beginning to wilt. I stood by the window of the master bedroom, the one I had shared with Richard for nearly 38 years, and I felt the air grow thick with absence. Richard had died quietly in his sleep 3 nights earlier. The doctor said his heart had simply stopped working, but mine had not stopped since. It beat on, stubborn and heavy, as if unsure whether to grieve or to endure. For nearly 4 decades, our lives had been woven together in this grand house overlooking the Hudson. Our laughter echoing through its high-ceilinged halls, our arguments softened by time, our love marked by small rituals, his morning coffee first, my evening tea last. Now I was a widow, a word that felt too old, too final, too empty for the woman I still was. I was Eleanor Whitmore, wife, mother, keeper of this house, and the quiet architect of our family's fortune. But the house did not seem to remember that anymore. It seemed to belong to someone else already. It was my daughter, Clara, who reminded me of that first. She came back from Europe the morning after the funeral, elegant as ever. Her blonde hair twisted neatly, her perfume sharp and expensive. She didn't cry when she saw her father's grave. She didn't even stay for the burial. Instead, she stood beside me with arms crossed, her eyes hidden behind dark glasses, and whispered, "We'll have to make some decisions soon, Mother. The lawyer's coming next week?" The words cut through me like frost. "Decisions?" she said, as if death were a business transaction, as if grief were something that could be scheduled between appointments. For the next few days, she walked through the house like she owned it, opening drawers, counting paintings, measuring silence. When I asked her why she was cataloging the rooms, she smiled with that polite indifference I had come to dread. "It's practical," she said. "We need to know what's ours." What's ours? I wanted to ask when we had stopped meaning family. When had my daughter begun to speak like a stranger? But I stayed quiet. The years had taught me that silence, too, can be a kind of strength. Then came the day of the reading of the will. It was held in Richard's study, the room that had once been his refuge, filled with the scent of leather and old books. The lawyer, Mr. Harland, a silver-haired man with a voice like dry parchment, sat across from us at the long mahogany desk. Clara sat beside me, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Whitmore," he began, "your late husband left a very detailed will. He divided his assets as follows." I half listened, still lost in the smell of Richard's pipe tobacco that lingered faintly in the air. Then I heard the words that made my blood run cold. "To my beloved daughter, Clara Whitmore, I leave the estate at Hudson Hill, all properties, and the sum of $33 million. The room swayed. My name was not spoken until nearly the end. And to my wife, Eleanor, I leave the keepsakes she may wish to retain, and the comfort of knowing this house will remain in the family. The comfort of knowing. It sounded like a cruel joke. Clara exhaled slowly, almost in relief, as though a burden had lifted. Then she turned to me, her voice honeyed but her eyes sharp. "You'll be taken care of, Mother," she said. "You can stay here for a few weeks while I arrange things." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that grief had simply made her cold. But I was wrong. 2 weeks later, she stood in the doorway of my bedroom, the same room where her father had taken his last breath, holding a glass of wine and a set of new house keys. "I've sold the property in the city," she said lightly, "and I've decided to move in here permanently. You'll need to make arrangements to leave by the end of the week." I stared at her, unable to breathe. "Leave," she shrugged. "It's better this way. You'll be more comfortable somewhere smaller, somewhere manageable. You've had your time here, Mother. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." When I said nothing, she looked at me, not with love, not even with pity, but with that same detached composure I had once admired in her. "Find somewhere else to die," she said softly, almost sweetly. "You're useless now." That night, I sat on the porch with a single suitcase at my feet, watching the house glow with warm light from the inside. My house. Her house now. And I realized that everything I had built, every sacrifice I had made, had been for someone who no longer saw me as part of her world. The car that came to fetch me was old, the driver kind enough not to ask questions. I asked him to take me to a small inn by the river. I didn't know where else to go. For the first time in my life, I was homeless. Not in the way that means sleeping on the streets, but in the deeper sense, unanchored, untethered, unseen. But fate, as I would come to learn, has a cruel sense of humor. 3 days later, Mr. Harland and that stiff old lawyer called me. There was something almost mischievous in his voice. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, "I was wondering, did your daughter even read the will?" I frowned. She was there. "She heard it." He chuckled softly. "Oh, but hearing and understanding are very different things." "What do you mean?" He paused, the silence thick as thunderclouds. Then, in a tone laced with quiet amusement, he said, "You might want to come in tomorrow morning, Mrs. Whitmore. There's a section of your husband's will your daughter seems to have overlooked. It concerns a condition." "A condition?" "Yes," he said. "One that changes everything." When I hung up, I felt the first spark of something I hadn't felt since Richard's death. Not hope exactly, but a trembling anticipation. Outside, the river glistened under the pale moonlight, and I thought I could almost hear Richard's voice. Low, steady, and certain, whispering from the shadows of memory. "Trust the truth, Ellie. It always finds its way home." Episode 2, The Condition in the Will. The following morning arrived veiled in mist, the kind that rolls over the Hudson like a living thing, slow, deliberate, and strangely merciful. I dressed carefully, though I no longer knew why. Perhaps it was habit, perhaps it was pride. Widowhood had stripped me of many things, but I refused to surrender my dignity. The lawyer's office was on the edge of town, a solemn brick building that smelled faintly of dust and old paper. When I stepped inside, Mr. Harland was already waiting for me in the oak-paneled study that served as his meeting room. His spectacles glinted as he gestured for me to sit. "Mrs. Whitmore," he began, his tone courteous but laced with something else. "Anticipation, perhaps. I trust you've had some rest?" I managed a polite nod, though I hadn't truly slept in days. He smiled faintly, opening a folder thick with documents. I reviewed your husband's will again last night. It seems your daughter may have misinterpreted certain clauses. To be precise, she overlooked one rather significant stipulation. I leaned forward. What kind of stipulation? He adjusted his glasses, clearing his throat with ceremony. Your husband, ever the planner, included what we call a conditional inheritance clause. You see, his wealth and estate were not granted to your daughter outright. Rather, they are held in trust under one very specific condition. He paused deliberately, watching my face as he continued. Clara must, within 1 calendar month of your husband's passing, demonstrate that she has fulfilled her duties as your legal caretaker. In simpler terms, Mrs. Whitmore, she was meant to keep you under her roof, provide for your comfort, and ensure your well-being for the remainder of your life. Only then would the estate fully transfer to her name. I stared at him, unable to speak. My pulse thudded in my ears. In the event, he added quietly, that she fails to do so, the entire estate, all $33 million, the house and its holdings revert to you, Mrs. Whitmore, solely to you. The room seemed to blur around me. I gripped the arm of the chair, my voice a whisper. You mean she's already forfeited it? Mr. Harlan gave a slow, satisfied nod. The moment she expelled you from Hudson Hill, she violated the terms of the will. The condition was clear. She has, in essence, disinherited herself. A strange stillness filled me. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even revenge. It was something quieter, steadier. The slow dawning of truth. For days, I had replayed her words in my mind. Find somewhere else to die. Each syllable burning like acid. Now, those words became her undoing. Mr. Harlan folded his hands on the desk, his expression softening. Your husband was a shrewd man, Mrs. Whitmore. He knew your daughter well enough to anticipate her greed. I suspect he wanted to give her a chance to prove herself, or to expose what she'd become. I felt my throat tighten. And now? Now, he said, we proceed carefully. I'll file notice with the estate's trustees this afternoon. By law, Clara will be notified that her inheritance has been voided. I expect we'll hear from her soon enough. He gave me a sympathetic look, one that carried both pity and admiration. You've suffered enough, Mrs. Whitmore. Perhaps it's time she learned the weight of consequence. As I left his office, I stepped into the pale morning light and felt the mist begin to lift. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe again. When the letter reached Clara 2 days later, I was staying at the Riverside Inn, a quiet place with ivy-covered walls and creaking floors that whispered with every step. I'd been reading one of Richard's old journals, tracing his handwriting with trembling fingers. When the knock came, it was the innkeeper, a kind woman named Mrs. Callahan, holding an envelope with my daughter's handwriting scrawled across the front. I hesitated before opening it. Inside, her words were sharp and frantic. Mother, what have you done? I've spoken with Mr. Harland, and he says the estate is being seized. This must be a mistake. Please call me immediately. We can fix this. We have to. There was no apology. No trace of remorse. Only fear. I folded the letter neatly and set it aside. I didn't call her. I couldn't. Instead, I went for a walk by the river. The November air was cool against my cheeks, and the sound of the water carried me back to a memory. The day Richard and I had first bought Hudson Hill. He'd stood beside me, eyes bright with pride, and said, "A home isn't built on wealth, Ellie. It's built on faith. Faith that love will outlast us." For years, I believed that love would always hold us together. But faith, I had learned, could be betrayed too. 3 days later, the storm arrived, not of weather, but of consequence. Clara came to find me. I heard her before I saw her. The crunch of gravel, the hiss of tires, the impatient slam of a car door. I turned from the window as she burst into the parlor, her coat flaring behind her like a cloak of fury. Her beauty was undiminished, but her eyes, once cold and confident, were wide with panic. "How could you let this happen?" she demanded, voice trembling. "Do you have any idea what this means? Everything is being frozen. The accounts, the house, even my personal funds." I met her gaze calmly. "It means you didn't honor your father's wishes." Her mouth fell open. "You can't possibly believe that clause was meant to stand. It's absurd. You're manipulating him even in death." A strange sadness welled in me. "Your father loved you enough to test you, Clara, and you failed." She laughed bitterly, pacing. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? You think you've won?" "Won?" I said softly. "Do you think there is victory in losing your own child?" For a moment she faltered, a flicker of humanity crossing her face. But it vanished just as quickly. "You can't take this from me," she whispered. "It's mine. All of it." She stormed out then, her perfume lingering like smoke. As I watched her car disappear down the long drive, I realized that the house had never been the true inheritance. The real legacy Richard had left behind was truth. The kind that reveals the heart beneath the wealth, the love beneath the lies. That evening, I returned to Hudson Hill for the first time since I'd been cast out. The house loomed against the darkening sky, its windows glowing faintly like tired eyes. Mr. Harland met me at the gate, holding a stack of documents. "It's official," he said with a small smile. "The estate is yours, Mrs. Whitmore. Every brick, every dollar, every acre. Your husband saw to that." I stood there for a long time, staring up at the mansion I had built a life within. A house that had once felt like a prison, now reclaimed by quiet justice. But inside, beneath the triumph, there was something heavier, a weight that no victory could lift. Because though the house was mine again, my daughter was lost to me, and in that loss, even fortune felt hollow. That night, as the moon rose over Hudson Hill, I walked through the silent halls and thought of Richard, of the wisdom he had buried not just in the will, but in the very bones of this place. His portrait hung above the fireplace, and in the dim light, his eyes seemed almost alive, knowing, patient, forgiving. "Rest easy," I whispered. "She'll learn. One day." The fire crackled softly, as though he'd answered, and for the first time since his death, I allowed myself to weep. Not for the fortune gained, but for the family lost. 3. The return to Hudson Hill. When I stepped through the doors of Hudson Hill again, the air felt different. Not lighter. No, the weight of the past still lingered in every shadow. But honest. For the first time, this house belonged to truth. Dust drifted in sunbeams that filtered through the tall windows, touching the grand staircase, the crystal chandelier. The velvet drapes Richard had insisted were too decadent for simple folk like us. He was wrong, of course. There was nothing simple about the life we had built here. I moved slowly through the foyer, trailing my fingers along the mahogany banister polished by decades of touch. The house was silent except for the distant echo of my own footsteps. Each room whispered memory. Here, the parlor where Richard read his morning paper. There, the piano where Clara once played scales as a girl, her laughter filling the house like songbirds in spring. But that laughter was gone now, replaced by the quiet hum of solitude. I found Mrs. Keating, our longtime housekeeper, waiting by the kitchen hearth. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she curtsied, her hands trembling. "Oh, Mrs. Whitmore, thank the Lord you're home," she said. "The house hasn't felt right since you left." Her words caught something deep within me. "Nor have I, Mrs. Keating, nor have I." She fussed over me as if I were a child again, made tea, warmed bread, and refused to leave my side until I had eaten. I didn't have the heart to tell her I had barely tasted anything since Richard's death. When she finally retired for the evening, I wandered upstairs to the study. The room had always been Richard's sanctuary, a world of order and oak and faint cigar smoke. His desk stood untouched, the papers neatly stacked as though he'd only stepped away for a moment. The scent of his pipe tobacco still clung to the air. I sat in his chair and closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to breathe him in. Grief didn't ease. It never truly does, but it softened around the edges, like the frayed corners of an old photograph. Then I saw it. A drawer slightly ajar. Inside, beneath stacks of correspondence, lay a sealed envelope, my name written across it in Richard's unmistakable hand. "To my dearest Ellie, to be opened only upon your return." My hands trembled as I broke the seal. The letter was dated 6 months before his death. "My darling Ellie, if you are reading this, it means you have come home. I know you well enough to know that you will not leave this house to ruin, no matter what pain has touched it. You are the heart of Hudson Hill, and without you, these walls are just walls. I have tried in my own way to prepare Clara for the world, but I fear I may have given her everything except the one thing she needed most: understanding. Money is easy to inherit, character is not. You once told me that forgiveness is not weakness, but grace. If ever she hurts you, Ellie, I ask, no, I beg, you to remember that. There is a box beneath the floorboards of my study, beneath the third plank by the fireplace. Inside is the truth I never spoke aloud, the truth about how all this began and why I did what I did. Yours always, R. My breath caught. Beneath the floorboards, with trembling hands, I knelt by the fireplace and pressed my fingers against the wood. The third plank lifted easily, revealing a small tin box wrapped in faded velvet. Inside lay a stack of old letters, each one yellowed with age, bound together by a crimson ribbon. At the top was a photograph of a woman I did not recognize. Dark hair, gentle eyes, a smile both sad and kind. Beneath the photograph, a letter written in Richard's younger hand. June 1932. To my daughter, should she ever wish to know the truth? The words blurred before my eyes. My daughter, for a long moment I could not breathe. The letters spilled from my hands, scattering across the floor like fallen leaves. I gathered them back, one by one, each word heavier than the last. I read through the night. The story unfolded in fragments. Richard's confessions, his remorse, his hope. Long before me, long before Hudson Hill, he had loved another woman, a woman named Lydia. They had a child together, a daughter. She had fallen ill during the war, and Lydia, fearing scandal, had left the child in care. Years later, when Richard met me, he thought both mother and child had died in a hospital fire. But they hadn't. The final letter confirmed what my trembling heart had already begun to suspect. She lived. I found her years later, under another name. I gave her education, refinement, every opportunity I could without revealing the truth. But I could never bring myself to tell you, Ellie, because that daughter was ours to raise in a different way. Her name was changed when she was young. Her name is Clara. I sank to the floor. The letters fell from my lap. The world tilted. Richard, Clara, my child. and not mine, the truth pressed down like the weight of the entire house. He had built a life of love and lies intertwined so tightly that neither could be separated from the other. He had married me, perhaps out of love, perhaps out of guilt, but either way we had both raised the ghost of his past without ever knowing it. The will, the condition, his strange foresight. It was all part of the same circle of penance. I thought of Clara's face, the sharpness of her features, her fierce independence, the restlessness that never quite fit within her. How many times had I tried to love her only to feel her push me away? Perhaps she had always sensed something missing between us, some truth unsaid, and now the truth was mine to bear. At dawn, I stood on the veranda, the letters clutched to my chest, and watched the first light spill across the valley. The house glowed with it, pale gold, quiet, alive again, somewhere deep within. I heard Richard's voice once more, soft and knowing. Forgiveness, Ellie, it's the only inheritance that matters. I wept then, not just for him, or for the betrayal, but for the years we had all been lost inside our own secrets. Forgiveness. How could I offer it when I did not yet understand it myself? But I knew one thing. I had to face Clara again. Not as her victim, not as her rival, but as her mother, by love, by choice, and perhaps by destiny. Episode 4. The Reckoning. I sent for Clara the next morning. The letter I wrote was short, only a few lines, penned in a calm, steady hand that belied the storm beneath my ribs. Clara, your father left something you must see. It concerns both our pasts and your future. Come to Hudson Hill tomorrow before sunset. Mother, I sealed it with wax, the way Richard used to seal his correspondence, and watched as Mrs. Keating carried it to the post. Then, for the rest of the day, I prepared the house, not for comfort, but for truth. I had the curtains drawn back in the study, letting in the cold November light. I placed Richard's photograph upon the mantel, his eyes fixed toward the chair where Clara would sit, and on the desk, I laid out the letters, the faded photograph, the confession, the inheritance of a lifetime of secrets. By the time the sun dipped low behind the hills, I heard the hum of an engine on the gravel drive. Clara stepped out of the car with her usual poise. Fur collar, gloves, the faint trace of defiance that had become her armor. But when she entered the house, she hesitated. For the first time in weeks, she looked uncertain. Her gaze swept the hall. You've moved back. Yes, I said quietly. I live here. As I always should have, she frowned. I didn't come to argue, Mother. I came because you said Father left something. I gestured toward the study. He did. Come. She followed, her heels clicking sharply against the wood floors, each step echoing in the stillness. When she saw the letters on the desk, she stopped. What are these? Your father's final words, I said, and the truth you were never told. She looked at me with suspicion, her chin lifting slightly. That proud Whitmore tilt that had once reminded me of her father, though now I saw it was his guilt that lived behind her eyes. If this is another of your manipulations, read, I said softly. She snatched up the top letter, unfolding it carelessly, her eyes scanning the lines. At first, her expression was irritation, then confusion, and then slowly the color began to drain from her face. She looked up. This isn't real. It is. She shook her head, backing away slightly as though the words on the page could burn her. He wouldn't lie to me. No, I said gently. He lied to both of us. Her voice trembled. You're saying, I'm not your daughter? I took a step closer, my own hands shaking. You are my daughter, Clara. Not by blood, but by every choice I made since the day you came into my life. I raised you, loved you, taught you right from wrong. I carried you through every illness, every heartbreak. That makes you mine in the only way that matters." She stared at me, her eyes glistening, not yet with tears, but with a fury that bordered on despair. "You knew?" "No," I whispered. "I didn't. Not until 2 nights ago," her voice cracked. "So all these years, Father knew and you didn't?" "Yes." She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "He made a fool of both of us." "No," I said softly. "He made a mistake. And he tried to make it right." Her laugh was bitter, hollow. "Right? By deceiving you? By letting me grow up believing I belonged, only to have it ripped away when it suited his conscience?" I reached for her hand, but she pulled back as though my touch burned. "Clara, listen to me." "No," she cried, her voice breaking. "You don't get to play saint now. You already won. You took the house, the money, everything. Now you want to take my identity too?" Her words sliced through me. I wanted to tell her that I didn't care for the wealth, that I would trade every dollar for one honest embrace. But she was beyond hearing. Rage, grief, and confusion swirled inside her. The same chaos that had once consumed me when I first learned of Richard's death. I watched her crumble beneath the weight of it all. "You don't understand," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Your father didn't mean to punish you. He wanted to give you the truth. To free you from a lie neither of us created." She sank into the chair, her face pale and drawn. "I don't know who I am anymore." "You are the same girl who used to pick wildflowers by the river. The same woman who fights for what she wants. The same soul he loved, and that I still do." The tears finally came then, slow and silent, tracing paths down her cheeks. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The clock on the mantel ticked between us, marking the slow passage of something fragile and human. Forgiveness being born. Finally, she whispered, "Why didn't he tell me?" "Because he was afraid," I said. "Afraid you'd hate him. Afraid you'd hate me," her voice trembled. "And now, I said softly, "you have a choice. You can live angry or you can live free. You can inherit what he truly meant to leave you. Not the house, not the money, but peace." She looked at me, eyes red but softer now, the sharpness blunted by exhaustion. "You forgive him, just like that?" "No," I said, and my voice broke. "Not just like that. I forgive him because I have to. Because hate is too heavy to carry into the years I have left." Silence stretched again, and for the first time, I saw something change in her. Not warmth exactly, but a flicker of understanding. Perhaps even shame. "I thought you wanted me gone," she said quietly. "I wanted you safe," I answered. "Even when you turned me out, I prayed for that." Her gaze fell to the floor. "I was cruel." "Yes," I said simply. "But cruelty born of pain is not beyond redemption." She drew a shaky breath. "And if I ask for forgiveness?" I stepped closer, cupping her face gently. "Something I hadn't done since she was a child." "Then you already have it." Her shoulders trembled, and for a moment she leaned into me, just slightly, but enough to feel the heartbeat that still remembered her as mine. When she finally pulled away, she whispered, "What will happen to the estate?" "It's yours still," I said. "I'll amend the documents to give you half. Not as inheritance, but as choice. I want you to build something honest from what's left." Her eyes widened. "After everything?" "Yes," I said softly. "Because mercy isn't given when it's deserved. It's given when it's needed." She nodded slowly, her voice breaking. "I don't know if I deserve it." Neither did your father, I said. But he still left it for us to find. That night, after she left, I sat alone in the study. The moonlight spilled across the desk, illuminating the stack of letters. The story of our family's mistakes written in fading ink. I thought of Richard, of his secrets and his love, of the way he had tried to stitch together broken hearts with the thread of redemption. And I realized then that he had succeeded, not through wealth or will, but through the painful grace of truth. The house was quiet again, but not empty. For the first time, its silence felt like peace. Episode 5, The Inheritance of Grace. Winter came softly to Hudson Hill. The river froze at its edges, and the vineyards that sloped behind the house lay bare beneath a shimmer of frost. The grand halls that had once echoed with Richard's laughter and Clara's anger now carried a different kind of silence. Gentle, living, full of breath again. 3 months had passed since that night in the study. 3 months since Clara had stood before me trembling, torn between fury and remorse, and I had chosen to open my hands instead of closing my heart. In those months, the house had slowly begun to heal. I spent my mornings in the garden, pruning what was left of the autumn roses, my fingers numb against the cold but grateful to still feel. The earth, though hardened by frost, reminded me that even in dormancy, there is life waiting to bloom again. Mrs. Keating would join me sometimes, wrapped in her shawl, clucking about my stubbornness. "You're too delicate for this weather, Mrs. Whitmore," she'd say. "The lady of the manor ought to be taking her tea by the fire." And I'd smile, because perhaps I was no longer the lady of anything. I was simply Eleanor now, a woman who had lost everything, and somehow found something far greater in the ashes of her old life. Clara visited every Sunday. The first time she came, she brought flowers, lilies, Richard's favorite. Her hands shook as she arranged them in the vase by his portrait. She didn't speak much that day, only sat across from me in the parlor, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice hesitant when she finally said, "I didn't know who I was, Mother, but I think I'm beginning to." And I had smiled, tears stinging behind my eyes. "That's all any of us can do, darling. Begin again." Each Sunday thereafter, she stayed longer. She began helping Mrs. Keating in the kitchen, laughing softly when her cooking went awry. She asked about the old family archives, about Richard's charities, about the workers who had once kept Hudson Hill alive. Then, one afternoon, she said something that caught the breath in my chest. "Mother," she said quietly, "I've decided to restore the vineyards." I looked up from my embroidery. "The vineyards?" She nodded. "Father always wanted them to thrive again. I want to run them myself. Properly. Not for profit, for purpose. I think I owe him that. And I owe you more." My throat tightened. "You owe me nothing, Clara. You owe yourself a new beginning." She reached across the table, taking my hand. "You gave me one." The gesture was small, but it was everything. In that moment, the space between us, the years of distance, the words left unsaid, the bitterness we'd both carried, began to dissolve like mist under sunlight. Spring arrived late that year, as if the world itself had needed time to gather its strength. But when it came all at once. Green bursting through the frost, the scent of new blossoms drifting through open windows. Hudson Hill was alive again. The workers returned to the vineyards. their laughter carrying up the hill as they pruned the vines and tended to the soil. Clara moved through the fields in her wide-brimmed hat, her gloves stained with earth, her once manicured hands roughened with honest work. Sometimes, from my window, I'd watch her move among them, her hair glowing gold in the sunlight, and I would think of the girl she'd been, proud, distant, uncertain of her place in the world, and the woman she was becoming now, grounded, kind, and finally free. One evening, she joined me on the veranda, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. "From the first barrel," she said with a proud smile. "It's not perfect, but it's ours." I took a sip. It tasted of earth and sunlight and redemption. "It's wonderful." We sat in silence for a long time, watching the sun sink over the river. Birds wheeled above the vineyards, their cries mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. After a while, Clara spoke again. "I dreamt of Father last night." I turned to her. "Oh?" She nodded. "He was standing by the river, calling my name. He didn't say much, but he smiled. I think he wanted me to know he was proud." I swallowed hard, the tears stinging again. "He would be, of both of us." She smiled, faintly, and then, with a gentleness I hadn't seen since her childhood, she said, "Thank you, Mother, for staying, for forgiving me, for everything." I reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, just as I used to when she was small. "There's nothing to thank me for, darling. Love doesn't end because it hurts. It ends when we stop believing in it." And I never stopped. That night, after she left, I sat by the fire with Richard's final letter resting in my lap. I had read it so many times that the creases had begun to fray. "Forgive me, Ellie. I tried to make amends in the only way I knew how. Our daughter, yours and mine, will one day understand that love is not about blood, but about the courage to forgive." I looked toward the window, where the moonlight fell across the vines that would soon bear fruit again. The house no longer felt haunted. It felt whole. I realized then that the true inheritance Richard had left us wasn't measured in money or land. It was in the quiet resilience of the human heart, in the way it breaks and mends again, until all that remains is grace. Hudson Hill stood as proof of that. Once a house of pride and secrets, it had become a sanctuary of forgiveness, a place where the past was finally at rest, and the future, though uncertain, was alive with promise. Years later, when I would sit on that same veranda in my old age, I often thought of how easily everything could have been lost, how close we had come to letting anger bury love forever. Clara would come each morning then, her children running through the halls, their laughter bright as bells. The house that had once fallen silent now sang again with life, and sometimes, in the golden hush of dusk, I would swear I could hear Richard's voice carried on the wind from the vineyards, warm, proud, tender. "See, Ellie," it seemed to whisper, "you kept the faith." And I would smile, my heart full, my soul at peace, whispering back into the fading light, "Yes, my love, the truth found its way home."